Ohayou gozaimasu. And as threatened or promised in my review recently of Exit 8, here I'm going to take a little bit more of a deep dive into the film, explore a little bit more of its strategies and its meanings. Notice I don't say meaning. I will repeat what I said in my review, that I hate the notion of explaining films. Any films that offer themselves up for a single explanation, I find reductive and facile and uninteresting. And people who claim to explain films, I don't really trust either. Apologies, but that's my POV, as it were. So that's one thing to get out of the way. The other thing to say at this point is that I'm going to be going into some details of the plot a little bit more thoroughly. So, spoiler alert, if you still haven't seen the film and you want to, as you should, see it fresh, without being burdened by readings or analysis or what have you, then stop now, right now, and come back at a later date, preferably not too late a date, because you're going to want to go and see the film. It's generating quite a lot of buzz, and people are already beginning to mull over its meanings, its implications, if you like. And while I stick firmly to my initial assessment, I think this is a good film. I think it's certainly an interesting film. I don't quite think it's a great one, but it is significant that it's generating a lot of buzz. It's significant that everyone is getting a chance to see it, and hopefully it's significant because we may have something like, I don't want to say a rebirth of J-horror, because I think J-horror should be used in a very precise context. I don't think J-horror equates to horror cinema from Japan. I think J-horror is a specific sort of iteration of horror. And, the recent films, this in particular, have moved away from that. But there is this sense of a kind of a common style. I mean, we've seen recently Kurosawa Kiyoshi return to something like the horror style and mode that he made his own as part of the J-horror boom of the late 90s and early noughties with Chime. So, given that there is a certain overlap, I think, between Kurosawa's work and Exit 8, hopefully, we're seeing things moving in a different direction, because whilst there is one foot in the past, I think Chime signals in some ways a decisive step forward, albeit it's a short film that probably won't get the visibility it deserves. So this is definitely an interesting film. It's definitely one that I think rewards repeated viewings. And with that in mind, let's deep dive into it. Let's take a closer look at some of its themes, motifs, and ideas. Okay, so I'll probably make 2 or 3 videos, shorter videos here. I've been conscious that some of my videos have tended to run on and on and on. I like to get into analytical detail, but I think shorter videos may help put my points across in a way that is a little bit more accessible. So this hopefully won't run on and on for 30 or 40 minutes or more, like my videos have tended to. So I'll try and break it down into some of the key ideas, I think, operating on Exit 8 and at the centre of its meanings and the ways that it can be read. I think, as I alluded to more than once in my review of the film, the concept of the Möbius strip, which is a sort of inverted loop that appears to kind of go on forever, and it's got an inverted sort of side, and is often seen as kind of challenging conventional distinctions of inside and outside, because of the way that someone, a creature for instance, traversing would kind of become inverted if they followed the track or followed the line of the loop. It's something that the Dutch graphic artist MC Escher became famous for presenting and developing in his art, and in the image Möbius strip 2, which we see in the film, we see perhaps his most famous take on this, where he actually shows ants on the kind of inverted loop that makes up the Möbius strip, and where distinctions between, as I said, not only inside and outside, but beginning and ending are kind of obfuscated, to say the least. Now, to my mind, this is quite an obvious image, and Kawamura sort of belabours the point in no small or uncertain terms in Exit 8. But it does have some important ramifications for the narrative. The notion of something that just continuously goes on a loop, where ending and beginning, or endings and beginnings, are ambiguous, has obvious implications for the narrative. The sense of no beginning or ending has obvious implications and points of reference within the film. For instance, it obviously comes around full circle and goes right back to where it started. So the narrative itself is a loop. But the sense of this sort of obfuscation or frustration of any demarcation between beginning and ending, I think, has some more fundamental resonance. I think if you think about what the film is giving us with regard to the protagonist, the struggles that he's having, trying to process big news in his personal life, and perhaps considering what his options are, how suited he is to progress to the next stage of his life, to move on from one place in his life to another. In other words, move forward, a linear trajectory rather than a cyclical one. There is a real resonance, because oftentimes when we are thinking about things, when we're stuck in a rut, when problems or big life choices present themselves, the moment that we first are cognizant of them, or of the extent to which they are impacting us, perhaps pulling us down, imperiling us, is not always clear. It could well be argued that it's clearer when we've made a decision, and we, move forward, if we're in a position where a single decision needs to be taken. And that is usually something that can catapult us out of a rut or out of a loop. And that's what the film seems to be pointing towards. So the specifics of this sort of mental struggle with the news of becoming a father, and obviously in so becoming, then, developing in his life, moving forward, that is that's the surface of the plot. But I think this sense of how we conceive of issues that arise in our life, when we become aware of them, what we do with them, is something that this film is kind of suggesting. Comes down to, making big decisions, one way or another. I mean, I think the open ending suggests that it's not perhaps the route we take as much as the fact that we take a route. It's not particularly what we decide on as much as the fact that we decide. I think that is something that the film's kind of just about open ending suggests to us as being the most important. So this is where the Möbius strip, where Möbius, the German mathematician who gave his name to this sort of idea and its visualization, and Escher, who popularized it through various aspects of his work, that's where it becomes so really both sort of intellectually stimulating and at the same time, and this is to the film's credit, sort of emotionally involving. It takes an abstract idea and makes it kind of relevant to each and every one of us, I think, and presents it to us in a form that we can relate to. Okay, so those are a few thoughts on some of the sort of complexities of Exit 8. I may well come back to another video. Hopefully this one hasn't been too long and my droning hasn't been too monotonous. If you've stuck with me this far, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you very much if you have stuck with me this far. I hope it's been interesting. Please feel free. Please, even more important than anything is commenting and building up a dialogue. I'm really interested to know your thoughts. As usual, follow me on X, AdamMingham01, online at culturaljapan.com. And I'll talk to you more probably about Exit 8 and a whole host of other things very, very soon. So bye for now.